Today we're getting into an updated guide for Lightning Lane Multipass and Single Pass after our most recent trip down to Walt Disney World. Hello and welcome to the Let's Go to Disney podcast. I'm Oliver.
And I'm Lucy.
Today is Sunday, October 6th, and you're listening to episode 56, Guide to Lightning Lane Multipass, Single Pass. Before we get into today's main topic, here's what's going on in the parks right now. Disney released some major discounts this week for stays for the end of the year into the first half of 2025. They announced the Stay, Play, and Save deal, which applies to stays of at least 2 nights and 3 days between February 26th and June 30th, 2025. There are also room-only savings available. You could save up to 25% most nights between February 23rd and April 30th, 2025, and up to 20% for Sunday through Thursday nights, January 1st through February 20th, 2025. Florida residents can save up to 30% for stays most nights between February 23rd and April 30th, and 25% for most Sunday through Thursday nights, January 1st through February 20th. Annual pass holders can save up to 35%, which is pretty steep, most nights February 23rd through April 30th, 2025, and up to 30% for Sunday through Thursday nights, again January 1st through February 20th. And for our Canadian friends, reminder that you can save up to 25% on a 4-day or longer ticket with start dates between November 10th through December 14th, and January 5th through September 27th, 2025, which is like a really big window of time.
Very big.
So if you're contemplating booking a trip early in 2025, now is the time. We're definitely going to be taking advantage of this deal for the kids' tickets for our May 2025 trip. This deal is on until November 6th, so don't dilly-daddle, book soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
The walls surrounding the Cake Bake Shop are finally down at Disney's Boardwalk. This restaurant that was announced back in 2022 looks like it was on the verge of opening. Along with the walls coming down, the menu was posted on the outside wall of the restaurant near the entrance. It features a breakfast and brunch menu with items like waffles, French toast, eggs, breakfast cakes, quiche, and various other offerings. They also have standard non-alcoholic beverages like mimosas and Bloody Marys and similar things. For lunch and dinner options, they have hors d'oeuvres, sandwiches, salad, quiches, soups, and a variety of entrees. Along with the table service side of the restaurant, they're also going to have a bakery that's going to offer many cake options among other sweet treats. This is what I'm most excited for.
Absolutely.
Some of the listed cakes are the Millionaire Cake, the Pumpkin Spice Cinnamon Roll Cake, the Pumpkin Spice Chocolate Cake, Red Velvet Cake, Carrot Cake, among many other options. They also have cheesecakes, pastries, fudges, brownies, bars, pies, pretty much anything your heart desires, they're going to have here. No official opening date was announced, but given that there's pumpkin offerings featured prominently on the menu, we're going to venture a guess that it's probably going to be very soon because it's Halloween season after all.
Absolutely.
And in very serious news, another hurricane is set to hit Florida, so that's heartbreaking given that Helene just went through. Hurricane Milton is apparently an unusual storm in that it's taking an eastward path and is heading for Florida's west coast. It could make landfall as early as Wednesday. The areas at highest risk are the same areas that are still recovering from Helene. To those affected, we're thinking of you and please be careful. We're hoping that the storm will, die down or change course. If you're in Disney this week or heading there this week, be mindful that it's more than likely going to impact operations in the parks, and it's definitely going to impact Orlando International Airport. So something to keep in mind there.
Yeah, for sure. They're in for a rough week out there, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So this is our first week back at work after our most recent trip, and it was a grind. It's always tough to come back to reality after spending a week or so in the magic bubble, but we have to make a living in order to support our Disney addiction, right? So the good thing is that since we were both off on Monday when we got home on Sunday, it was a 4-day week for us, and it was a really good way to transition back. And like we said last week, we booked our bounce back offer for our next trip in May of 2025 with our kids. So it's nice we already have another countdown started. The kids don't know about it yet, but once they do, they're going to be very excited as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm actually contemplating a solo trip in February 2025 to cover Festival of the Arts, but we haven't fully decided on that yet. We'll see how things go in the coming weeks and go from there.
Absolutely. So with that being said, let's get into today's main topic. So we had previously put on a full detailed guide to Genie Plus and individual lightning lanes, and we also covered the virtual queues in that episode. And as most of you are aware, on July 24th, Genie Plus was changed to Lightning Lane Multipass, and individual lightning lanes were changed to Lightning Lane Single Pass. These are significant changes to Multipass, but for the most part, the changes to Lightning Lane Single Pass were pretty small, although there are some welcomed quality of life improvements there as well. So we're now in October, and the new system has been in place for a few months now. Plenty of people, us included, have had a chance to actually put this into practice and put it through its paces to see how it works and how to maximize your purchase and your time in the parks.
Yeah, agreed. So let's kick things off with quickly covering what has changed. So first things first, the most significant change in our opinion is that you can now purchase and book lightning lanes ahead of your trip. When Genie Plus was around, you could only purchase it one day at a time starting at midnight on the day of your visit. Now you can book 7 days ahead of your check-in day for every day of your stay for up to 14 days if you're a resort guest. If you're a non-resort guest, you can book them 3 days ahead of your first park day for the length of your ticket. If you're an annual pass holder or similar non-date-based ticket holder without a resort reservation, you actually have to book every day individually on the day of your visit. But if you have a resort stay booked, that reservation trumps the restrictions of your non-date-based ticket, and you can go ahead and book at 7 days just like resort guests. Again, this is a significant change because previously this wasn't an option, right? You had to book the morning of for every day you wanted to use Genie Plus. Now you can book and pay for every day of your trip before you're actually down there for your trip, which is actually pretty nice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then the second most significant change is that much like the old FastPass Plus system that was in place pre-COVID, the attractions are tiered in every park except for Animal Kingdom. So the most popular attractions in each park are Tier 1 attractions, and then most of the other attractions are classified as Tier 2. So for reference, Magic Kingdom's Tier 1 attractions are Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Jungle Cruise, Peter Pan's Flight, Space Mountain, and Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Over at Hollywood Studios, it's Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, Rock and Roller Coaster, and Slinky Dog Dash. And then over at Epcot, it's Frozen Ever After, Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, Soarin', and Test Track when it reopens.
Yep.
Animal Kingdom does not have tiered attractions, so the attractions that were on Genie Plus just rolled over into MultiPass. So when you purchase Lightning Lane MultiPass, you can actually make 3 selections ahead of your park day. 1 from Tier 1 and 2 from Tier 2, or you could make them all 3 of them from Tier 2 if that's what you decided to do. All of the initial 3 selections must be in the same park. So even if you do have park hopper tickets, you cannot select 1 or 2 attractions in your first park and then another one in another park. Your initial 3 attractions must all be in the same park. Also, if you recall, when you purchased Genie Plus, if you wanted to use it in multiple parks, you needed to actually purchase Multiple Parks Genie Plus, which was always priced highest along with Magic Kingdom. This has also changed. The price for MultiPass is set for each park, and there is no multiple park option, which is actually very nice.
Yeah, agreed.
So this means that if you start your day in Animal Kingdom, where MultiPass is $17 per person per day, and then you hop over to Magic Kingdom in the afternoon, whose MultiPass price was $24 per person per day, you don't actually need to pay anything extra to make selections at Magic Kingdom, which is actually really nice.
Agreed.
So we'll get into the rules surrounding switching parks in a little bit.
Yeah, no, exactly. But that's actually surprising to me that Disney doesn't make you pay the difference, just given how they normally do business.
Yeah.
And again, it's a business, so I don't reproach them for that, but it's nice that they actually don't make you pay extra, which is
Agreed.
Which is nice. The third most significant change is that you can pick your time from available times. So when you make your selection ahead of your trip, you'll have return times assigned that the system's going to work around your existing plans, right? So like dining reservations, for example. So let's say you have a lunch reservation at Sci-Fi Dine-In Theater for noon at Hollywood Studios. Well, the system's not going to give you a noon return time for one of your 3 selections. But you do have the freedom to modify that time from available times, very similar to how you could do it with individual lightning lanes before the change. In the before times, Genie Plus automatically gave you the soonest available return time, like no ifs, ands, or buts, it's just what it was, and you didn't have the freedom to choose from available times, but now with MultiPass, you do. Now, for the Lightning Lane Single Pass, reminder that this was the old individual lightning lanes, and the changes are less significant, but they are worth mentioning regardless, so here goes. So the pre-booking works the same exact as it does for MultiPass, meaning you can book at 7 days as a resort guest, 3 days as a non-resort guest, and the day of for non-date-based tickets with no room reservation. They are still priced individually and are a separate purchase from MultiPass. You can purchase Single Pass and not MultiPass. You can purchase MultiPass and not Single Pass, or neither or both. So it's completely up to you. They are independent from each other and you choose what you want to spend your money on. You can purchase them for each day of your visit based on the parks you're visiting. You're limited to 2 Single Pass purchases in a day, and it can be for the same ride. So for example, you could purchase a Single Pass for Rise of the Resistance and one for Tron in the afternoon if you were hopping to Hollywood Studios, or from Hollywood Studios rather, to Magic Kingdom. But you can't purchase 2 Single Passes for Tron. You're limited to 1 per attraction and 2 attractions total. Reminder that in each park, the Single Pass attractions are as follows: Tron and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train for Magic Kingdom, Rise of the Resistance for Hollywood Studios, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind for Epcot, and Flight of Passage at Animal Kingdom.
All right, now that we've covered the main changes, let's get into how this is booked and what the booking experience is like when you're doing this ahead of your trip. So when we booked ours most recently, which was actually just a few weeks ago, we did it together. We definitely advocate for having 2 people booking at the same time because that way you can have 2 people working on bookings 2 different days at the exact same time. So you'll be able to be done twice as fast. The way this works is this is really the same whether you're booking at 7 days as a resort guest, 3 days as a non-resort guest, or day of if you are a non-based ticket holder. You can only purchase 1 day at a time, meaning even though you can book multiple days, you can't book multiple days in one transaction. You can only do one at a time. So that's where having that second person really comes in handy. The booking window opens at 7 a.m. Eastern time, so you want to make sure you're ready to go a few minutes ahead of that so that you can start booking right at 7.
Yeah, agreed 100%.
And have a game plan too.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Like have a Word document with, you know, the attractions you want to book first, and then have a contingency plan in case like for whatever reason it's booked up. It shouldn't be booked up, right? It might be like later in the day, but you should find availability, but it doesn't hurt to be prepared just in case.
Completely agree.
So the menu for booking is actually super simple and user-friendly. If you use Genie Plus at any point in the last few years, you're going to have no issues navigating MultiPass whatsoever. And even if you're not super tech savvy, don't worry. You can use if you can use the Mail app on your phone or similar, simple apps, you're going to have no issues using this. So from the main screen on the My Disney Experience app, you're going to tap the box marked Lightning Lane Passes. From here, you're going to see 2 boxes, Purchase Lightning Lane MultiPass and Purchase Lightning Lane Single Pass. Click on whichever one you want to purchase, and don't worry if you want to purchase both, just click on one of them and you're going to be able to select the other in the next screen, we promise. Once you've done that, you're going to be prompted to select which day you're purchasing for, and on the next screen, you're going to select which park you're visiting. When you do that, you'll activate a drop-down menu that's going to have the multi-pass options for that park, along with the single passes in that park as well. Here's where you select both single pass, multi-pass, or any combination thereof that you're looking to purchase for the day. You're then going to select your party, so everyone that has eligible park tickets that is linked to your account is going to show here. The next screen is going to show the attractions in their separate tiers. So like we said before, you're going to select 1 from tier 1 and 2 from tier 2, or 3 from tier 2 if you wanted to do that, but we don't suggest that, right? Book a tier 1 if you can, right? They're going to be the hardest to get. Once you've made your selections, you're going to tap continue, and this is where you're going to see return times that the system has assigned to you. You're going to notice in blue lettering a box marked modify time. If you weren't happy with the return time that you were assigned, you could tap here and modify to see what else is available. If you see that a time you like better is available, then tap it and you can book that time instead. Big caveat here, do not back out of this screen. The times you see there are locked in. So if you back out to the previous screen and then come back, all those times are going to refresh, and the times will likely have already slipped later in the day. So when you're on this screen, you can modify, but don't backtrack. Caveat being, this screen is timed at 5 minutes, right? So you can check for other times, but you're not going to be able to do that for, forever and a day. If the times aren't perfect, don't worry, go ahead and book, and you're going to be able to come back in after in the days and hours leading up to your park day to modify for a different time if you want to do that. From that screen with the listed times, you're going to make your purchase, and from there, when you refresh your future plans, you're going to see your Lightning Lane Multipass and Single Pass that you booked for that day. To book for other days, it's just rinse repeat for every day of your stay or ticket length, depending on what type of guest you are.
Absolutely. So we broke it down by screen, and it definitely sounds cumbersome, but we promise it's actually not. It's super straightforward and easy to use. So with that said, here are some tips and things to keep in mind to have a successful morning when booking your Lightning Lanes for your trip. So number 1, like we said, definitely have 2 people booking. It'll go twice as fast and you can simultaneously be working on different days of your trip. And then number 2, the times earlier in your booking window will likely be later in the day, whereas the days later in your booking window will have a much more better return time availability. So think like the morning.
Yep.
We'll give you an example. So say you're booking at 7 days out for your first park day and you're staying at Disney for a week with 5 park days. Many people will have access to that first day of your trip than they will for the last day of your trip. So you'll notice the return times for that last day will be closer to the 9 a.m. mark. Whereas your first day, the return times may be later in the morning or even at that point in the afternoon or evening.
Exactly. Yep.
Times for Animal Kingdom and Epcot tend to be easier to get, so it may actually be in your best interest to put those days at the start of your trip and then your Hollywood Studios and Magic Kingdom days later in your trip, since snagging those Lightning Lanes are going to definitely be more competitive in those 2 parks.
Agreed, 100%. That's definitely our experience.
Absolutely. Yep. So this, like Oliver said, this was 100% our experience, and it's very much like booking advanced dining reservations in that respect. So keep your harder to get and most coveted Lightning Lanes for later in your booking window. Number 3, don't settle. Once you've made your purchase, you can always go back in to the individual Lightning Lane you booked and modified them for like a better time.
Yep.
And we did it on every single one I think that we had booked. We ended up modifying at some
even
point.
just slightly better. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Note that once people have made their plans, they're not likely to be changing them in the days leading up to their trip versus on the actual day of their visit. But we were able to snag some better times using this strategy.
Mhm.
So if you have a day where your return times are not ideal, think like afternoon, evening, which will likely be in the earlier days of your stay, you can certainly try and modify those times in the days leading up to your park day. What we found is that the times didn't budge much between the 7 days and the 3 days, but we really started to see movement on the day of our park visit. We were definitely able to refresh for better times, and when we were like actually physically in the park.
Yeah, 100%. Like think Slinky Dog Dash. It was initially 5 p.m. and we were able
And that
to
was the
bring
first
it.
time, yeah.
and we were able to bring it closer to noon on our actual park day,
Yep.
which was actually really nice.
It was perfect.
Which leads us to our next point, which is actually using MultiPass in the parks during your visit. So once you have a good grasp on how Lightning Lanes work and you've got your initial selections made, how do you maximize your purchase and your time in the parks with MultiPass? One thing we didn't explicitly mention during the booking phase, but we're going to mention now because it definitely impacts how your day is going to unfold when you're in the parks. One of your Lightning Lanes, doesn't matter which one, should be as early in the day as possible. The reason we say this is because as soon as you've scanned into your first attraction, whatever attraction that is, you're going to be able to select your next attraction. And not only will you be able to select your next attraction in the park you're in, but if you intend on park hopping like around the midday mark, your next selection could be in whatever park you're hopping to next. And after you've scanned into your first selection, tiers also no longer matter. So you could have scanned into a tier 2 attraction, like Pirates of the Caribbean, for example, and your next selection could be a tier 1, like Peter Pan's Flight. It could also be an attraction in another park. And again, that could be tiers don't matter, right? So it could be another tier 1 in another park. So if you were hopping to Epcot, you could ride a ride like Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. Scanning into your first attraction literally unlocks the ability to book any available Lightning Lane, regardless of tier and which park it's in, assuming you have park hopper tickets, of course.
Absolutely. And then possibly the coolest part of this is that your other 2 selections, you could modify them to other attractions in other parks if you wanted to. So prior to the change, if you had a selection in Magic Kingdom, you would not have been able to modify it to an attraction in another park. You would have had to make a fresh selection in the second park. But now, once you've scanned into your first attraction, you can literally modify your others into any available attraction anywhere in any of the 4 parks. If you don't have park hopper tickets, no worries. You'll be able to book any available Lightning Lane in the park you're in. And then an important point we want to make clear as well is that in the days leading up to your park day, you'll see the return times dip later and later. But in practice, additional times will be released during your park day. We found that consistently across all 4 parks on all the days we were there, times seem to just be dropped at different points throughout the day, including some of the most popular attractions like Slinky Dog Dash and Remy's Ratatouille Adventure.
Yeah, 100%. We were able to walk back times for both those attractions and all the other attractions. Basically, we were still able to refresh. It's still alive and well. It's still
Absolutely.
working well with this system. So don't sweat it. If your times are not what you're wanting, you're going to be able to almost certainly get a better time on the actual day of your visit.
Absolutely. Refreshing is your friend here.
Yep.
The more times you spend refreshing on the app, even if it's just for a few minutes here and there, you're likely going to find success on the day of your visit if you weren't happy with the times you got leading up to your park days. And then another key thing to keep in mind here is that you're always able to hold up to 3 Lightning Lanes at a time. You won't be able to hold any more than that, and you should never be holding less.
Agreed. Yeah.
Like you should always have 3 in the queue. So long story short, as soon as you make a selection, go ahead and book your next one. You should always be holding 3 selections throughout the day. That is super key.
Yeah, agreed 100%. And this doesn't really have anything to do with refreshing, but we get this question a lot, so we want to address it here. So what happens if an attraction is down during your return time, either for multi-pass or single pass, right? That's happened to us lots. It happened to us on this most recent trip. So let's demystify that. So for multi-pass, you're going to be given an experience redemption. You'll see it show up automatically in your My Disney Experience app. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to go see a Blue Umbrella cast member, like a guest experience team member, right? It's just going to happen automatically. If you click on it, you're going to be able to use it at the attraction that was closed as soon as it reopens, or at any time until park close. It doesn't actually have a time limit. You can go whenever. It'll also show you which other attractions you could use your redemption for if you chose to do it. If you chose to do it, essentially.
Yeah, because sometimes the ride that went down does not open up again.
Exactly. Or you weren't super invested in riding it in the first place, and then you have access to go ride another one. You can do that. It just has to be listed there. So one thing to keep in mind, though, is that it's only going to be similar attractions, right? So, for example, if you got an experience redemption for Haunted Mansion, you wouldn't be able to ride Peter Pan's Flight, right? It's too
It's a tier 1.
Exactly.
Versus tier
It's 2. The rides are not similar enough. Or like Jungle Cruise, you wouldn't be able to do that either, right? But you would be able to do something like Pirates of the Caribbean, which is like on even keel, right? If this happens to your Lightning Lane single pass, you're going to be able to ride the attraction as soon as it opens until park close on that day. Caveat here is that that's an extra purchase, right? So if the attraction goes down and doesn't reopen, you don't have the opportunity to ride for whatever reason, you can visit guest relations and get a refund.
So another important point that will be greatly increasing of your success rate when it comes to refreshing for a better time is setting up My Day feature in the My Disney Experience app. So this is the remnant from the previous Genie Plus system. This allows you to pin the attractions you most want to book at the top of your Modify screen. Now, you'll notice that we said Modify screen and not the tip board. So back in the Genie Plus days, setting up your day pinned your selection attractions to the top of your tip board. It actually doesn't do that anymore, but it's still worth setting up your day because it will pin your top attractions to the top of your Modify screen when you're trying to modify an attraction. And then in the end, it serves the same purpose and works the exact same way. If you're confused, hang on, we'll explain how you do this. So from the main screen, you'll tap the menu marked Today's Plans. From here, near the top of your screen, you'll see a menu bar that will say Start Here to Plan Your Day with a button that reads Get Started Now. So when you do that, you'll select what day you're planning for and which park you'll be in. You'll then select who will be in your party with you that day, and then after that, you'll be able to select attractions.
You should only select 1 or 2, 3 at the very max of the next attractions you want to book or refresh for during the early part of your day, okay? So it's also going to prompt you to select other things like shows and dining, but leave those, okay? You don't want anything other than the attractions you want to book cluttering your Modify screen. You want that as clean as possible. This is going to pin those attractions, right? Those 1, 2, or 3 that you're selecting at the top of your Modify screen, which is going to prevent you from having to scroll down and find them when you're trying to book times. Guys, it may not seem like much, but if you're not tapping immediately when you see a good time, we can 100% guarantee that it's going to have been snagged by somebody else when you were scrolling. That's
100%.
like for sure, okay? Don't let that be you. After you book those attractions and you want to replace them with other attractions you haven't done yet, you can switch out the attractions right in the app. So from the My Day tab, at the very top of the screen, you're going to see Edit Selections. Once you tap that, you're going to go through this menu again. You're going to be able to deselect the attractions you previously selected and select the new attractions that you'd like to book. This, folks, is the secret to our success, okay? We can't overstate how much of an advantage this is, right? So make sure you're doing it. We hope we explained it clearly enough. If you still have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us on our socials. We're always happy to help in any way we can. But
absolutely.
like literally, it's those seconds, right? Like literally you're refreshing and you're trying to say book Peter Pan's Flight, for example. If you have to scroll down to P, right? Meaning it's alphabetical, right? So you'd have to scroll down to P. Whatever time is there, that is a nice time, it's gone. Guaranteed it's gone. But if you go in and pin those attractions to the top of your Modify screen when you refresh and it's, sitting at the top, 1 or 2 attractions down, and you're able to see it on your screen, you don't have to scroll, you're much more likely to be able to tap that and get that time.
Yeah, I completely agree. We have seen it many times where we would have the time that we thought was perfect, got into it, and it's already gone because somebody was quicker than us. We call that getting got.
Yep.
And then we have to go back and do it all over
100%.
again.
And that's using this technique, right? So even if you like align the stars and you give yourself the best chance of success,
you can still get got.
You're still going to get got because other people are doing the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
So it's important but just stack those odds in your favor, right? Do the things that you can do to give yourself the best chance of success.
Absolutely. So we can quickly see the advantage of making that first selection early in the morning because as the day wears on, Lightning Lane availability will go down. So the earlier in the day you can start making your next selection, the more Lightning Lanes you'll be able to book during the day. And we touched on this earlier, but refreshing for better return times is still alive and well. Let's say you started your day at Magic Kingdom. Your first selections were Tiana's Bayou Adventure, Haunted Mansion, and Pirates of the Caribbean. Your return time for Pirates was 9:20 a.m. So you scan into Pirates right at 9:20, and then as soon as you scan in there, you'll be able to make your next selection. Say you book Peter Pan's Flight, but the return time is 5 p.m. Oh, bummer. It doesn't seem so
that would
appealing.
Be a bummer.
But you can still settle for that time for sure. But if you spend some time refreshing, you're more than likely, like 99.9%, gonna find an earlier time that will pop up. It will take a little bit of time, a little bit of modifying, but you'll get a better time.
Almost certainly.
Again, you do this from the Modify screen, you click on the attraction and then select Modify Plan. And then from there, you'll be able to see the return times that are currently sitting at. Pull down on that screen to refresh the time. In the short term, you'll likely see the same time pop up over and over, and then maybe even slip later as other people are doing the same thing. But inevitably, sometimes an earlier time will pop up. If you are able to tap into that time before other guests, that time is now yours. It's worth doing this because reducing the time between Lightning Lane selections will allow you to make more of your day as it wears on.
Yeah, exactly. The closer in time your Lightning Lanes are together, the more you're going to be able to pick throughout the day, right? Because if it's like 8-9 hours between your first one and your next one, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that depending how you're structuring your day. But if your day, or your not your day rather, but your plan is to get as much done during your day, like refresh for a better time, because then, let's say you ride one at 9, then you ride one at 11, you ride one at 1, and you're doing that with all 3 of your selections, you're going to end up doing a lot during your day.
Absolutely. Now, we're not suggesting that you spend your whole day refreshing. Like we always say, the best strategy for your park day is to use Lightning Lanes in combination with standby queues, shows, snacks, and dining to just have a well-rounded experience. It's not fun to bury your nose in your phone and miss out on everything else. So it's all a balancing act. But what we will say is if you can spend 10 minutes here and there refreshing for better times, you're more than likely going to find success and get more bang for your buck when it comes to Lightning Lane Multipass.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Now, another thing we haven't mentioned yet is which rides you should prioritize when making your selections. So we're going to go by park here. So starting with Magic Kingdom. So at Magic Kingdom, when your booking window opens, you should 100% book Tiana's Bayou Adventure as your first Tier 1 attraction. It's going to be the first to book up guaranteed. And Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean should be your Tier 2 attractions. These are the most popular and are likely to be the first to fill up from the Tier 2 side. After you've scanned into Peter Pan's Flight, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad and Space Mountain are the other Tier 1s. Jungle Cruise is also usually part of that lineup, but it's currently down for Richmond, but it's opening again later this month. Yeah. So that's going to be back in the conversation right away. Peter Pan and Jungle Cruise will be the next to book up after Tiana's Bayou Adventure. And to a lesser extent, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad and Space Mountain. Their availability will hang around much longer than the other two, so something to keep in mind there. For Tier 2s, Buzz Lightyear, Space Ranger Spin, Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh will book up sooner than some of the others, like Under the Sea Journey of the Little Mermaid and It's a Small World, among others. Generally speaking, those other ones are not too hard to get.
No, you can always usually find times.
Yeah, and for Hollywood Studios, just like before, Slinky Dog Dash is by far the most popular Tier 1 attraction in this park. It's not even close, so that should 100% be your first Tier 1 selection. Your first Tier 2s should be Toy Story Mania and Tower of Terror. Again, those are outliers. They're also the most popular 2 Tier 2 attractions.
Absolutely.
So they should definitely be your first Tier 2 attractions. The next Tier 1s are Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, Rock and Roller Coaster, and Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. Mickey and Minnie's is going to go before Rock and Roller Coaster and Smuggler's Run. So that should be first, and then you can split the difference on the other two. For the Tier 2s, the others are generally not too hard to get, like Alien Swirling Saucers, Star Tours, and the shows. Be mindful that the shows book up sooner because more people are going to be selecting them as their Tier 2s, right? That goes hand in hand with the fact that everyone is selecting 2 Tier 2s, so Tier 2s tend to go faster than they used to. The shows also don't run all day. They're going to stop in that late afternoon, early evening, so just something to be mindful of there.
Absolutely. And then for Epcot, your first Tier 1 should always be Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. In our experience, it's slightly more popular and will definitely go quicker than Frozen Ever After. And then obviously Frozen Ever After is the second most popular, but not by much. Make no mistake, it's also very popular.
Agreed.
It always has long wait times in the standby queue.
Yep.
Soarin' is also a Tier 1, but it's nowhere near as popular as the other two.
Agreed.
And then Test Track is also on this list, but it's actually currently down for an extended refurbishment, and it's not actually set to reopen until sometime in 2025, so you don't really have to think about it right now if you're going in the rest of the 2024 year. When it is operational, though, it's more popular than Soarin', but not usually as popular as Remy's and Frozen, although when it first opens, it may become quite popular just because everybody wants to see what they've done.
Agreed.
But it'll probably die back down into like the third spot eventually.
Exactly. Yeah.
As for the Tier 2s, Spaceship Earth and Mission Space are definitely the most popular. And then the others like Living with the Land, my personal favorite.
Yeah, still holds up, still good.
The Seas with Nemo and Friends, Journey into Imagination with Figment, among others, hang around much longer.
Agreed.
And then, like we said earlier, Animal Kingdom is not tiered, so you don't have to worry about the tier system. You just have to pick 3 selections and away you go. So your top 3 picks should definitely be Navi River Journey, Kilimanjaro Safaris, and Expedition Everest. You should definitely have no issues booking any of these.
Yep.
And Dinosaur, Kali River Rapids, and the shows like Festival of the Lion King and Finding Nemo, The Big Blue, and Beyond are also fairly easy to book.
Yeah, agreed. It's not super tough to get lightning lanes in Animal Kingdom.
No, it's not.
Now, when it comes to Lightning Lane Single Pass during your visit, we found during our most recent stay that availability for Single Pass is actually super limited on the day of your visit. But as you filter through the parks, when you're modifying, you're going to see times pop up every now and again. So keep refreshing in that sense in the same way you would for MultiPass. Like it works differently, but refresh is what we're getting at.
Yeah, agreed.
You never know what availability might come up. This is actually how Lucy was able to modify our Tron Lightning Lane to Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Yeah, exactly. On our most recent trip. This was on our last day. We talked about it in last episode, but we switched our plans late in the evening. She was able to grab, what was it, like a 7:20?
It was like a perfect time. Yeah, 7:20, 7:30. I can't remember.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
one.
We were eating dinner at Ohana. We didn't want to go back into Magic Kingdom. We wanted to go to Epcot to ride Guardians. So we refreshed back and forth. We were able to snag that, and that's what we did.
And it worked perfectly.
Exactly. Having said that, prior to July 24th, when they were still called individual Lightning Lanes, you could choose your attraction and return time from available times, and then you'd be locked into that time with no way to modify, and the purchase was not refundable. Now you can modify the time after you've made your purchase, which is nice because, as you know, plans change, right? Things happen in the parks, and it's nice to have that flexibility. We just talked about that. But what's really nice is that you can also change the attraction and park, meaning if you booked a single pass for Flight of Passage, but are hopping to Epcot and want to ride Guardians of the Galaxy instead, as long as there's available times, you can modify that single pass Lightning Lane to the new attraction. There is a bit of a caveat here. Say, for example, you modify Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, which is usually priced in the low to mid-teens, and you modify it to Tron, which is consistently $20 or more. You're going to have to pay the difference in price, right? So Disney gets you here. If Seven Dwarfs was $12 and Tron is $20, you're going to have to pay that $8 difference.
Per person.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
a party of 4, that could be significant.
Yeah.
And if you do it on the other side, so say you modify Tron to Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, which is $8 cheaper on that day, you don't get a refund for the difference. So you're on the hook for that. So you're either plus or minus depending on which way you go, right? It's not necessarily a deal breaker, but something to be mindful of should you choose to do that at any point during your trip.
And then the last thing we're going to touch on before we wrap things up is the virtual queues. So this actually hasn't really changed at all despite the changes to Lightning Lane Single Pass and MultiPass. The biggest difference is recently, Tron was taken off the virtual queue list. It now just has a regular standby queue. So be mindful that it remains a Lightning Lane Single Pass for purchase if you want to skip the queue, but it is not on MultiPass. And then as of this recording, the only 2 virtual queues in use at Walt Disney World are Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Epcot and Tiana's Bayou Adventure at Magic Kingdom. Just like before, you have 2 chances to join the virtual queue, once at 7 a.m. and then again at 1 p.m. At 7 a.m., you can join from anywhere on property. And then at 1 p.m., you actually have to be physically inside the park where the attraction is located to join the queue. The 7 a.m. queue fills up much faster than the 1 p.m. queue, as a general principle. But either way, you definitely want to be ready to go a couple minutes before the hour to give yourself the best chance, definitely, of success.
Yeah, agreed 100%. So how do you do this? Well, from the main screen, you click Virtual Queue, and you're going to be able to toggle between Magic Kingdom and Epcot to join either Tiana's Bayou Adventure or Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Super simple, okay? From here, you're going to confirm your party, and you're going to see a refresh button. You can refresh by pressing that button or pulling down your screen, whatever you prefer. You want to do this at exactly 7 a.m. or 1 p.m. respectively. Some people are going to tell you to do it at like 6 o'clock, 59 minutes, 59 seconds, like 6:59:59. But we found that there's a slight delay when you do that, and your boarding group is actually going to end up being later. Yeah. So it helps to have someone with a world clock with a seconds counter and refresh it at exactly like 7, right? So 7:00:00, like exactly when it flips to the new time, or 1 o'clock, whichever one you're doing. Once you do that, the button for refresh will change to become Join Virtual Queue. It's the exact same location. It's the exact same size. It just instead of saying refresh, it says Join Virtual Queue. I'm not joking. That's exactly what happens. And tap on that like your life depended on it, right? Wait, and then you get to wait and see which boarding group you landed. This may sound like overkill, but we promise you, if you want to join the virtual queue and you try this like 30 seconds past the hour or later, you may not get on the virtual queue at all. Like you likely won't, right? So set up an alarm, get your screen loaded and ready to go in the minutes leading up to that time, and prepare to tap quickly when the time comes to give yourself the best chance of success.
Now, with all of that said, here's our thoughts on the newish Lightning Lane MultiPass and Single Pass system. We actually like the system in a lot of ways. It's better. It's nice to be able to book 3 Lightning Lanes ahead of your trip. It's one less worry to think about in the morning of your park visit. It's also nice to see what attractions are available and what the return times are looking like before you make your purchase. Another thing we really like is that you're able to modify an attraction to any other attraction anywhere on property. Like we said earlier, before you had to make a selection in a park, you would not have been able to modify to any other attraction in another park. You would have had to make a fresh selection in the second park you were visiting. Now, as soon as you use your first Lightning Lane, you can modify your others to any attraction anywhere on property, pending availability.
Agreed. That's probably the nicest feature, right?
Agreed.
It gives you a lot of flexibility on the back end.
Absolutely. And then for Single Pass, it's also nice to be able to book those in advance and then again have that flexibility to change not just the time, but also the attraction. It's a really nice perk that gives a lot more spontaneity to your day if you want that.
Yeah, 100%. Like you and I were, I feel, super spontaneous on this last trip. We bounced around, from park to park. We changed up our plans, and we're not saying that that's the best way to vacation, but it was, it was just a solo trip, Lucy and I, and we were able to do that, and we felt like it really added to our day in the sense that we didn't know where it was going to end, and it was fun.
Yeah, I agree.
Some things that aren't so great and that we'd like a little less is that tier 2 attractions tend to book up much faster and are harder to get than before. So remember, before you'd only be able to select one attraction at a time, so people would select the more popular attractions first. So the less popular attractions had availability well into the late afternoon and evening. Like it was super easy to get the tier 2s in the before times. Now people are confined to one popular attraction and have to make 2 tier 2 selections, and they do it, right? Why wouldn't you? You're buying it ahead of time. You're going to make those tier 2 selections.
Absolutely.
So many more people are selecting those initially, meaning Lightning Lanes, even for those tier 2 attractions, are harder to come by. Not impossible, just harder to get, right? And on that same note, it's now more competitive than ever to refresh for better times, because in the before times, again, people were refreshing for a better time for whatever single attraction they had booked. But now people are holding up to, 3 Lightning Lanes at any given time and can refresh all of those simultaneously, assuming they have, different people in their party doing that. So it's harder to get better times than it was before. Honestly, that was the biggest change that we noticed. It wasn't impossible. It was just more challenging, and we had to refresh longer, even for those much less popular attractions, to get good return times.
Absolutely. So overall, we really do like the new system. We do think it's an improvement in a general sense, and we do think it'll appeal to a broader subset of guests and make it easier to use for many people. We found a little less success than normal. Again, it doesn't make our experience bad by any means. It's just an observation and our experience in the parks on this most recent trip.
Yeah, agreed 100%. With that said, thank you for joining us today to talk Lightning Lanes. We hope you get some useful information out of it, and you're going to be able to put some of the things we talked about today into practice to have a smooth park experience during your trip. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you could leave us a rating and review, it would be greatly appreciated. It helps us increase our reach so that we can be found by more folks planning Disney trips. And you can leave reviews right on Apple Podcasts. And for Spotify, you can leave a rating.
You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at letsgo.to-Disney, as well as on our Facebook page, Let's Go to Disney. We share some helpful reels here as well as some fun ones. The link tree in the show notes will take you to all of our socials.
Have a great day, and we'll see you real soon.